Hey guys, so thank you so much for taking this Sunday to read a document that I should have sent you much earlier and to watch this little video that I wanted to put together. So I wanted to just do this quick video because I realized that I really should have included this in our meeting, but I was just speeding too quickly, and sometimes I have a tendency to assume that just because I see the obvious strategy in what I'm doing, or that I feel like I know what I'm doing, I assume that other people get it, or can also explain it to others in the way that I'm visualizing it. And of course, that's not the case. Nobody's a mind reader. So I just wanted to give you how I'm envisioning our business strategy over the next 5 years, in a very simple to understand way, even though you guys don't need a simplified version of it. But just because I know we're filming tomorrow and we're going to be asked questions about the strategy potentially, I wanted to break it down in a way that anybody can understand, even the director, right? Because he's going to have to work with his team to edit everything together in order to make a cohesive, comprehensive overview of what the company is doing. And so I'm a teacher, of course, and so I decided to break it down into three simple steps to making $1 billion. And I just also wanted to still remind everyone that the orbital data center is not off the table. And in fact, it's still very much on the table. But as we all know, that's an extremely very ambitious project. Not that I don't think we as a team can accomplish that. On the contrary, I think we can, and that's why I'm thinking so seriously and so deeply about how to realistically get there and how to give ourselves the best possible path forward. So I want to jump into this. Okay. So this is a 4 to 5 year high level overview of how I'm envisioning the strategy for the company. And I also want to say that, and I didn't do this in the meeting, and I'm sorry, but please give me your input on anything that you see, any kind of, better ideas, missing components, or better ways to think about this strategy. Of course, that's why I have you all on the team. So if you can add anything, please tell me, and please speak up about it. So like I was saying earlier, I really want to especially keep reminding myself that the ultimate goal is the orbital data center, which I hope you don't mind, Pablo, but I'm in marketing. And so I came up with a cute acronym because everybody in aerospace likes acronyms. So I came up with Galileo Centers, which stands for GPU Accelerated Logistics in Low Earth Orbit, or as I've affectionately called it, the Death Star or the Data Star. But it's for now, I'd love it if we could actually call it Galileo or Galileo Centers, actually for the filming, because that's going to help us just, in memorability and branding and concept visualization and all of those things. So I am envisioning a 3-step process to potentially and hopefully get to getting enough investment and a proper enough team to actually build out our first modular pod. So, of course, the CubeSat it can be a standalone product, and that could potentially, have millions of dollars in revenue. One CubeSat could potentially make up to 1.5 million just for one, and we could have many. But I just want to remind everyone and myself that the CubeSat really was envisioned by Pablo as a proof of concept for the data center. And maybe to not get too sidetracked on thinking that is like a pivot from the data center or a totally separate track, because it really wasn't envisioned as that. Actually, I was standing in my backyard trying to pick up fallen avocados when I came up with the concept on the phone with Pablo. If we could make a miniature data center to launch, I didn't have in my mind, I didn't have the concept of CubeSat for that, but I was just thinking, how can we possibly model this or beta test this as a proof of concept? Because obviously we don't have millions of dollars in funding to launch this huge, first initial pod. So I asked if we could come up with a miniature version of the data center, and that's what Pablo came up with, was the CubeSat. So with all of that said, the CubeSat, I initially believed that I could fund it all myself, which could still be potentially an option, but as one might assume, building a satellite with a tiny team and a tiny budget is very difficult, and I may be able to cover the full cost of the actual materials, but the adding in labor and the other things like office space or like a clean room space, assembly, and all of those things, probably not. I could potentially get it, let's say 75% there, but then upon just Pablo and I looking more at the cost of materials and just the difficulty of trying to make a CubeSat on such a tiny budget, and also knowing that either way, we're not going to have enough to actually launch the CubeSat, right? So either way, we would to get it out into launch, we need about $500,000, and yes, we could rent it out on the ground as test bed services, but it's not going to be tons of revenue just from renting it out on the ground as a test bed service. So just looking at all of that and still keeping in mind that the ultimate goal is the Death Star, I started wanting to just back up and think about things a little bit better. Also keeping in mind that we are still pursuing grants. I'm going to start working with Ditesh pretty much right after the filming to aggressively pursue private equity and VC, which I haven't started on that yet because I've been just really focused on all of this first, right? And also getting into accelerators and incubators as well. So I'm rambling. This was supposed to be a short video. I'm so sorry. But the whole point of all of this is to say that I had to take a step back and really think about how can we get some revenue generated right now and have a product that we can sell right now that can make it so that we could potentially fund the CubeSat ourselves, no matter what, no matter if we get private equity right now, no matter if we get investment or not. So with all of that said, and I know I explained this in the meeting a little bit, but I wanted to systematize it in this 3-step process because this is what I'm seeing in my mind when I'm thinking of it. So just so we can look at the revenue numbers, and I want to move this over. One moment. Can I do this? Oh, yes, I can. Okay, put it down here for me. Okay, so, oh, yes, and I also came up with a acronym for the radio frequency prediction SAS, which is Clarity. And I'm massaging those letters a little bit more, but I'm thinking in my mind that I want it to be called Clarity. If not that, then it could just be called RF Predict. I actually was looking up the domain rfpredict.com and it's available, so we'll see. But either way, the cost to self-fund the Mega Constellation RF Prediction SAS is around $120K. It's only going to take 2 to 3 months. Actually, Pablo said 8 weeks. So to have a beta product that we can start selling to early adopters, and which of course is very, very fast. And we can start generating revenue, as I said before, with just a few early adopters. And I'm envisioning the SaaS product to potentially be its own division within the company, because it's going to hopefully be a source of revenue long term as its own standalone product. And hopefully I'll be able to build out a team that's just for that one division that's handling that. So while that's kicking off revenue, hopefully we'll be able to self-fund the CubeSat, which I'm now calling Galileo Cube, or Baby Galileo. But so as you can see, all three of these arrows are starting all at the same time. So Pablo has already been doing an amazing job at developing this satellite by himself as a one-man show, which I'm getting more help on that right now. So that's already being designed, and the bill of materials is already being put together and sourced and all of that. And like I said, we're still submitting grants and going to be pursuing investment for that. And at the same time, starting pretty much right after the filming, like I said, we're going to be working on getting serious funding for the orbital data center, the Galileo centers. So you can see that these arrows are kind of starting all at the same time, but each will hopefully develop over slightly longer time period and slightly longer time period. And these are some really good round numbers for everybody just to kind of keep in mind for the filming tomorrow, which is in just a couple months, and hopefully within 6 to 12 months, we'll be able to get 5 to 8 early adopters in order to start generating up to 1.8 million in revenue from the SaaS product, with a goal to hit around 12 to 18 million. So let's just say 15 million within 3 years. And as soon as we can get either the grant funding or investment for the CubeSat, or I don't know if I said this, or of course pay for it ourselves. So 500,000 for the CubeSat itself, and then the launch. Each CubeSat can start generating revenue within 3 years. And so I put on this yellow arrow here for the CubeSat, year 1 is development and year 2 would be deployment. It's going to take about 18 to 24 months for the CubeSats to reach a break-even point. So I just rounded it out and saying revenue within 3 years would be around 100,000 per CubeSat. Oh, you know what? Actually, I did some wrong. I did some wrong numbers here. I'm flying through. I believe this first block here where it says revenue within 3 years, 100,000 per cube. I believe that's supposed to be 2 years, and then over here, revenue within 3 years is 500,000 to 1.5 million per cube. And then, of course, the really ambitious project, the McRib, as I'm calling it, the Mac Daddy one, right? The super intense project, the Galileo Centers, would have a goal of launching our first pod and the spine within 2 years of funding. Of course, the funding for one is very high, as you can see in our documents. But once it is launched and past the break-even point, potentially we could start generating $10 million in revenue within 3 years, with it potentially scaling rapidly within 5 years to 100 million plus. Yes, it's a very ambitious project. But since it is modular, it can scale, and that number can just keep going and going and going, right? So I guess you can say go big or go home. So of course, with the Galileo centers, we're not going to be able to get around probably working with VCs, which is, it is what it is. So we're going to be working really hard on that as soon as humanly possible. So to reiterate, I made a fun little graphic here. So 3 simple steps to make $1 billion. Crystal's 3 simple steps to becoming a billionaire is 1, make something quickly that you can sell and start making money. 2, pay for something that will show investors your concept works and you can accomplish a large-scale project as a team. And 3, of course, make the Death Star and take over the world. Don't forget to do that, because that's the end goal. So I hope that this helps. That's really it. That's what I wanted to say. I'm sure you guys already probably figured out how I was thinking about this. But again, I just wanted to have this 3-step kind of parallel process visualized for all of us, especially me. I'm going to stop rambling. Thank you guys so much for watching this video on a Sunday. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.